What's up, bikers? Here we are, episode 187. Guess what? This is the part where I tell you the name of the title, the name of the show, and the number, because I'm just really impressed, man. It's almost 200 episodes, and I'm either mentally unstable or maybe getting better at this. Who knows? But either way, today we have Bikes to Bites on actually Garret Bess from Bike to Bites. I have to change that. I thought I fixed it everywhere. I just want to say Bikes to Bites, but it's Bike to Bites. Anyways, he does a television show about traveling around the US, going to different cities, riding some bikes, and eating some good food, whether it's something that everybody knows about or something that mostly the locals are like, this is our gem. So anyways, I think it'll be a really fun show. But before we get started, I want to talk about a couple of things. I have an awesome bike sponsor this year that I'm super stoked about. It, if you followed the channel for a while, it happened very organically, man. They were on the podcast a few times and tried one of their bikes. I honestly got this frame and just expected to sell it. And next thing you know, I'm like all in. So they changed my mind. So I guess the proof's in the pudding there. I've been riding the Delano Peak a lot lately. It's their trail bike, and that's Ari. So if you're not familiar, they changed their name from Fazari to Ari, and that trail bike's been super fun. So if you're thinking about a trail bike or any bike in general, I mean, they got them all. Swing by their website, ari.com, and check it out. Outside of that, I've been also riding for Tasco Stoke or Tasco MTB, whatever you want to call it. If you go to their website, they have a new URL. You can still, of course, use the old one, but Tasco Stoke is what they're using now. So tascostoke.com, and you can use code B1KER, save a little money. I am super stoked because that Delano that I've been riding is pink, and they have a chalk pink glove that almost matches it perfectly. And then I also used as a blue accent color. They have another pair of blue gloves that's also damn close as well. So I can buy 2 pairs of gloves and actually have 3 pairs that I can wear because I like mix matching them sometimes. So it just looks fun. Anyways, swing by tascostoke.com and use code BIKER, B1KER, save a little money. Last but not least, Callie's been a long-time supporter of the channel. If you're looking for a new helmet, I would definitely check them out. They have pads and other things there, DH helmet, kids helmet, you name it, they got it. And they have extended a really good discount to everybody, a 30% discount. So use code B1Callie 30. No, man, I almost just forgot it. B1 Callie 30. There we go. And save 30%. So my favorite helmet, the Amaya, is only $100. It's not their most expensive helmet. With that code, you can get it for 70. So seems like a good deal. The best thing about or one of the best things that I think about Callie that I really enjoy is they have a complete crash replacement. So you fall down, you bump your head, you think your helmet might be a little compromised. Or it is definitely, you're like, man, that thing saved my life. Instead of having to buy a new helmet, you can send it back to them and they'll send you a new one. So that's pretty rad. I don't know of any other company that does that. So moving on, let's go ahead and bring Garret on. Let's talk about bikes. How's it going, Garret?
Good. How are you, man?
Dude, I'm living the dream.
You and me both, my friend. You and me both.
Right? Have you seen the new movie Fall Guy?
I have not seen the new movie Fall Guy. No.
Do you remember the old show?
I do remember the old show.
So I'm 46. So I remember seeing the commercials for the show and I remember it being on, but I don't really remember watching it that much. But for those of you guys that don't know, they did a movie that's kind of based off of it recently. And the premise of the show is that the Fall Guy he's like the stunt dude, right?
Yeah.
And same with the movie.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was kind of cool to watch the movie because it's set like they're filming it as they're filming a movie, right? So you kind of like feel like you get a little bit of like, oh, that's how they do that behind the scenes, And when I was watching it yesterday, I was thinking, well, this is kind of like what I'm going to get with Garret tomorrow. He's going to give me the behind the scenes on the whole TV industry.
I'm gonna try to do my best at answering all of the questions that you.
Yeah. No, it'll be a master class here in the next 2 hours. I hope you got your like number 2 pencil. You're ready to go.
I'm ready to take notes for myself.
Right. So, what is Bike to Bites?
So, Bike to Bites is a television series where we travel the United States, um, drive across the United States, and then land in a city, and then design a bike route anywhere from 15 to 40 miles around the places I want to go eat,
Mm-hmm.
and places that I want to try, and chefs that I want to meet, sample their signature dishes, and then get back on the bike and go to the next place. We feature about 4 restaurants per episode, and usually do that in a in a route that makes sense in terms of going from one to the next, and then and then we get in the car and we move on to the next city and do it all over again.
That's really rad. And this is mostly like a road bike or gravel bike kind of thing.
So season one of the series, which was it premiered in 2023, was uh, purely a road bike.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I was on a titanium frame 7 cycles bike with the Shimano Dura-Ace, and I think no, actually in season one it was the Ultegra, um, and then season two I rode on a Parley road bike, and also we had a Parley gravel bike. And depending on where we were riding and whether there was some gravel in terms of the route that we planned, we pulled out the gravel bike. And we did get to do that in season two twice, in New Jersey and also in Vermont, which was a lot of fun.
Right on, man. That's exciting. What inspired you to do this?
That is well, we've got 2 hours, so
Yeah, we got plenty of time.
I will give you. So I've spent 30 years producing television in the food and travel space for Food Network and Cooking Channel and Travel Channel, um, and I had kind of left the business of producing original content for a while because I own a production company. It's called Two River Pictures, and we started to do a lot of corporate video work, specifically in the tech space. And
Mm-hmm.
that just boomed over the last 10 years and kept us really, really busy. And what I found very frustrating about the television industry at the time that I was in it, there was only a few players at the time that were the dominant players in the industry. And it was a buyer's game, not a seller's game. And so it was, really hard to justify the time in and dollars out against the work that we were doing. I loved the work. I was passionate about the work, but something needed to change, and it wasn't changing as quickly back then as I would have liked. So we kind of pivoted into this world of corporate, never getting out of the world of original content, but kind of putting it on a back burner. And it wasn't until 2020, during the pandemic, and one of our big corporate clients we traveled all over the world filming content for them, stopped filming content, and because they couldn't travel. And so everything had to be turned into a virtual kind of messaging. And they came and asked us, can you help us? We need to be able to communicate to all of our stakeholders. Can you help create some content, but doing it virtually? And then a lot of them we're used to doing these large user conferences all over the world, live events, 5,000 people in attendance, and they couldn't do them anymore. So they were turning their live events into virtual events, and those were being produced kind of like a live television show. And they came to us again. And so that happened, and we pivoted during this time and pivoted well. And then came out of the pandemic, things started to change. This one particular client of ours, great client, but went back into the live space. And so we kind of got backburnered in terms of the work that we were doing virtually. We still did a lot of corporate video work for them. But I was at this point I'm just going to be honest, feeling really soul sucked coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Having to pivot a few times in terms of from the time I started my company to the time that we are here now. And I was just feeling creatively absent, or think something was missing. And so my wife was really worried about like where my head was at in terms of like, you need to get your mojo back in terms of your creative. And And the same time during the pandemic, I started riding a bicycle. Like many people started riding bicycles during the pandemic. They couldn't keep the bikes on the shelves,
Yeah.
long enough. And
Was that
so
like something totally new for you? Like you were never really a cyclist, or?
never a cycle. I would never have called myself a cyclist. Was I a kid that rode my bike all over the neighborhood? Yeah, but I was not like cycling for like, distance and miles and look and trying to track my stats and none of
Yeah.
that. Like,
And then
so
maybe as an adult, just like, hey, we're gonna get some bikes to ride around the park or something like that. Or
exactly. I'm going to go
yeah,
down to
okay.
the beach on my bike, and
Yeah.
so I had an old aluminum frame bicycle that I took out and I started riding during the pandemic. I started doing more miles on that thing, and and it was starting to hurt me because I started to go like I was doing long distance. I wasn't really fitted right on the bike, I don't think, and I went into my friend who was at this bike shop and I said, hey, like, I'm doing this. Should it be hurting me? And he's like, absolutely not. He goes, how many miles are you riding? And at this point I started out riding 3 miles, like the first trip that I did 2 or 3 miles. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm a
Right.
cyclist,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I got 3 miles down and and then I kept going and kept going. And then, the 3 miles became 15, became 20, on a ride, and that bike was not meant to kind of handle that long distance of a ride. So he convinces me again, height of the pandemic, and at the same time of me getting interested in cycling, this is happening at work about
Yeah.
the changes that were happening at work, my creativity feeling challenged, and he puts me in this carbon fiber gravel slash or like hybrid bike.
Uh-huh.
And I started riding that, and the long distances started feeling much better.
Right.
It was a better ride. I was fit to the bike a little bit better than the first one that I had. And so I got into cycling, right? And it became something that I was doing during the pandemic. For me, it was for really, I would say, my own mental health, right? It was like
Mm-hmm.
a way to get out there, clear my head of all the things that were going on in the world and more specifically within the business. And I just said, I just need to do something. And this was something that that I was able to do.
Why did you pick cycling? I mean, just because it was one of the few things that you could do, or there was like something like, you know what? I know some people that like it, or like it was just like, oh, I got this. I'm gonna go try to.
It's a good question. I always would be around town, and we live in a really idyllic area, like right out the window over there. I'm staring at New York City. We're on the Jersey Shore, Central Jersey Shore. You can take a high-speed ferry from here into Manhattan. You're there in 45 minutes. And around here along the shore, and there's this particular area does have some climbs, not like California, but there are some climbs. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really known in this area, specifically where I am, for mountain biking, although I'm not a mountain biker, and I know you are, and you would absolutely kill it and love it out here. Because there's a really great mountain bike area that is incredible. And so, I see people riding all the time. And I was like, like they're having fun. They're out there, they're outside, they're getting fresh air, and for me, I think that was what drew me to cycling. I saw other people enjoying themselves. And I was like, you know what? I want to get a little of that. I'd like to. And then what I didn't realize is that you and I've talked about this. I don't wear headsets when I ride typically.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I first started, I wasn't listening to music. I just was going out for like that Zen moment of just
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
outside. And I love the crunch under my tires. I love the sound of the wind, while I'm riding. And to me, that was just very therapeutic. It
Yeah.
was really very therapeutic. And so my wife sees that I'm like really not doing that great in terms of where I'm feeling my work, and she sends me away. She sends me away to this place in Massachusetts in the Berkshires. I take my bike up there by myself. You check your phone in your room. You can't leave your room with your phone in your hand. It's yoga, it's sound therapy, it's massage, it's meditation. It's all things that I had not really ever done. Massage, yes, but like these other things, no. It was
Yeah.
journaling and it was clean eating. And I started journaling and I was like, man, like, how do I how do I marry all the things that I love? How do I take cycling and food and travel and producing and create something that I can experience joy and challenge again? And so I wrote this idea down in my journal while I was there for Bike to Bites.
Mm-hmm.
I got it. I mean, so I come back and I talk to my team here at the office and I say, like, I think I want to produce this sizzle reel of a show concept that I have. And I just, and
So can you explain what a sizzle reel is?
yeah, so a sizzle reel is a teaser, if you will, of a concept. It's a
Mm-hmm.
reel that basically lays out what the essence of a show idea might be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not quite a pilot, right? And a pilot is more of a fleshed out, formatted version of a show.
It's like the
Uh,
whole thing. It's
it's
just
the
like your
whole
first
thing.
shot. Yeah.
And
Okay.
so the sizzle, well, we started out it's so funny that you asked, because we started out wanting to do it as just a sizzle reel. And then what ultimately ended up happening is we shot enough content that we edited almost a full episode of television as this proof of concept. And
Right.
first question that my team asked me is like, dude, like, like, who are we selling this to? We're not even really in the TV business as much as we used to be. Like, I go, it doesn't matter. Stop. I go, what? Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who we're selling it to. Like, let's just do this because I think it would be good for us to get off this corporate work, come out of the pandemic a little bit and breathe new life of
Yeah.
creativity into our souls. And so we did.
You really came back charged from this event, this thing that you went to. Like, it really helped.
Oh, there's no question. When you go to a place for 5 days with no distractions, and the only one that you are spending time with is your own thoughts,
Yeah.
it's amazing how liberating, that can be. And I strongly encourage you. And you don't have to go to Miraval to do
Yeah.
that. You can go to somewhere like the woods even and go camping
Yeah.
and get that same feeling that I'm talking about. So
I'm sure it's a good thing, but for me, I'm like, that sounds terrible. I just don't like being by myself.
you and I both, I'm a very, we've
Yeah.
socialized together. I'm a very social person. I thrive
Yeah.
off of other people's company. So for me, I think that was exactly why it was so
Yeah.
effective for me, because it was forcing you to be to be in a way that you're not normally
Yeah.
comfortable with. And
Really present with yourself.
yeah, and I think a little bit of that discomfort was healthy, and I think it kind of inspired me to figure out, how do I take these things that I love and marry them together. And so we filmed the sizzle reel in New Jersey,
So
and
typically with the sizzle reel, not to cut you off
sure,
there, but
go ahead.
so then the idea is then you like send this out to a bunch of like networks then and
It would be the idea that you normally would take this and you would send it off to some network executives, or if you have an agent, your agent is out there and trying to
then he
help.
like tries to sell it for you.
Yeah, he or she will take this and try to peddle it and get you meetings, and then you go in and you try to pitch. Once they've
Okay.
seen the reel, if there's an interest, they'll have you come in and you can do and I've done all of that. Like
Right.
the first series that I ever sold, I sold what they call in the room, which is I
Yeah.
went in to sell a television series to a network executive and they bought it in the room, which is unheard
Nice.
of. It doesn't ever happen. It was a freak thing. And that's a whole
Sweet.
story in and of itself. But like, this was we didn't have a place to shop it, right? And that was
Right.
not for me at the moment that I wanted to come back and do it. That wasn't the point,
Right.
although it became the point later, because when we finished filming, and we started to look at the edited piece together. And just footnote, so I decided to get in front of the camera and host this thing. And I've spent 30 years behind the camera, producing television and
Mhm.
corporate video work. And it wasn't an ego thing for me. It was like, I know what was in my head. And the best way to get it out of my head was for me to just prove out the concept by doing it, what I thought was the show that I wanted to create. And then I had ideas on who we could get to host it should it ever become a show. And it wasn't me, it was going to be somebody
Right.
else. And so we finished this thing, and some people, friends of mine, start to look at it and they're like, it's really good, Garret. You should try to sell it. You should see if you can get some interest in it. So I sent it to a former network executive of mine at Food Network. and a former network executive of mine at Travel Channel. And the guy from Travel Channel, both of them had the same reaction, by the way. They watched the sizzle and they both called me up and they're like, holy shit, dude. Like, I had no idea it was you in front of the camera when you sent this link to me. And I was like, no, it's just proof of concept. Just wanted you to see the format. And the guy that I sent it to, the former Travel Channel exec, was now heading up a brand new network out of Dallas called EarthX TV. And the irony of it is that he is the gentleman that had given me my first break in television almost 20 years ago. And
wow.
Here I am. He's who ultimately got me into that room that I sold my first show to.
Oh, wow.
And so
it's funny how life is so full circle like that sometimes, right?
It is. It's a real lesson in that old saying that, really you try not to burn any bridges, because, you don't want anything to come back and bite you. And in my case, it didn't come back and bite me, but it came back with open arms and said, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And
yeah.
And after he gets over his initial, surprise that I'm hosting the thing, he starts to tell me that he thinks it's really good and he thinks the format is great. And he goes, and I love this. And I think it could fit with what we're doing here at EarthX TV. And he said, I want to buy it. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, no, I want to buy the show. And I said, well, great. I mean, this is incredible. I said, I have some ideas for talent that I'd like to talk to you about. He goes, you're not listening to me, dude. Like, I want you to host it. I want this. I want 8 episodes of this. And so we negotiated a contract, and we worked out the final details, and we went into production in, I guess, June or April or May, we went into production. And then by June, was it June? No, by July, we were on the road and we were filming for 7 weeks, crisscrossing the United States in season 1. And then,
so you did it like that. I was going to ask that. Like, so it wasn't like you went and filmed one city, came back, edited out, and then so you filmed everything and then came back.
We started the editing process as we were on the road. So the way that worked was that we would go out and film everything, because it's more economical to go on a full run than to keep coming back and doing that. So that the efficiency of production costs are in your favor when you can stack it like we were stacking. And we had a route that made sense. We drove across the country in a way that, and that's really a show in and of itself, driving with a crew of people who have never worked together, or some have worked, that's a whole other thing. And so as you're filming, we're sending footage back to our offices here in New Jersey, and our editors are starting the work of, sorting through the content, getting show notes from the showrunner. A showrunner is basically showrunner / executive producer, is the one that's kind of on set, doing all of the oversight of the creative product that we're putting out. And so we were paralleling, shooting, and then footage was coming back, and episodes were getting edited, and notes were going back and forth.
So then does the editor have some line of communication with you as a producer on like, hey, we need shots like this, or like, how involved is your editor in the actual creation of it?
It's funny. In pre-production, the editor weighs in before we ever go out on filming. We kind of review the format. We go over with the editor. And in our case, we had more than one editor, which is pretty typical. So we're giving them a debrief on the format, what this construct needs to look like, how we want the act breaks to be broken out. That all kind of gets reviewed in the beginning, and then we go out and we execute on what we say that we're going to do. And then footage comes back in with notes from the field about this is what we captured. But then my style of producing is I leave it with the editor untouched for a few days, right? That they can go through it, where we're not bombarding them with notes. And we actually encourage them to start cutting and kind of putting their own creative stamp on the process. Because, the reality is, this is a collaborative art. we don't do, people always say, you know, we got nominated for 2 Emmy Awards and a James Beard Award, and people come up to me and go, oh, congratulations on your Emmy nomination or your James Beard. I go, it's not mine. Like, there's like 26 people working on this show.
Yeah.
And, you know, people forget that. It takes a lot of people to make what we do, you know.
Before I started making content, I would have never put any thought into how important the editor's position is to telling the actual story. Like, if you would have asked me as a regular like guy that just watches TV or content, I would say, you know, the person filming it is the one that's making those decisions, you know, and realistically, like, what you capture on film compared to what you can do with how you edit. I mean, you could take something, and even if the person capturing the film was like, hey, I'm trying to capture a happy moment, the person editing could make that a sad moment just by the way that they do it, you know. And it's phenomenal, you know. And so I think that it's really opened my eyes to a lot of that kind of creative process. And I think it's interesting that you allow your editor to do that, because I think that's really important, you know.
Very important. They have a creative POV. And I think it's, you know, our job in the field is to deliver them an abundance of assets and choices that they get to play with. And then we have guideposts, you know, because we all signed off on format and structure before we ever left. Those are the guideposts. But you want their creative fingerprints on the product as well, because they'll see something that might be different than what we saw in the field. And they'll, you know, and it's that interaction between that editor, you know, the producers in the field, our DP, our director of photography, whose eye is supposed to capture the content that we're grabbing. And so I think everyone plays their part, and the editor, I think sometimes I think you want to be really. I make a conscious choice. My editors are not button pushers, you know, and that's what sometimes they're called, is like button pushers. No, my editors are creative people, you know, and there's a lot, and I'm not the only one that feels this way. There's a lot of production houses that view their editors as part of a very instrumental part of the creative process. And so it's important that they have their fingerprints on it. And then once we've put ours on it and what we've captured, what I've put on it in terms of how I deliver content as a talent, and then them and what they do. And then you take all of that, and now the producers comes back to the producers to start fine tuning and, you know, tweaking. And, you know, I like that beat better than that beat in terms of like story arc. And I think that's where it's truly collaborative and wonderful. And it's been a thrill to make the show.
I think it's interesting too, because the editor also won't have as much bias on the shots as the person who like took them or the person who was in them, because they know how much work it was or how out of the way they went for that or whatever. And the editor can look at it and just be like, yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's fresh eyes. And you want those fresh eyes, because to your point, when you're living and breathing it in the field, you're going to get content bias. You know what I mean? You're absolutely going to feel like, oh, I want that because I remember that, you know. The editor is looking at the totality of how it's piecing together, threading together, and saying it doesn't fit, you know?
Yeah.
And so you have to be willing to let go of some of your precious, you know?
Yeah. You had a name for YouTubers that you said when we were riding together. It was like a something that was like a mixture of an editor and a filmer.
Oh, Predators. That's an industry term. And that is somebody who produces, sometimes shoots and edits their own content. You're a predator, you know, in terms of what you do. You're out there filming, you're coming back into your shop, you're editing the content. You're the talent. So you're wearing, and as a talent, not just on camera, you're the producing talent, because it's your story that you're trying to pull together and tell. So that's a definition of a predator. And it's it's interesting.
It's really interesting to me to like think about that process in other people's hands. You know, it's like almost scary to me to think about like how would I tell the story that I want to tell when I have somebody else doing like any one of those pieces, you know? Like when I'm writing, I'm thinking like, oh, this would be a good spot right here for me to like set up some camera for a B-roll, or this would be a good spot for me to talk about something. Or when I'm telling the story, I need to like have this capture here. Like I should have some drone work here or something. And I'm doing all of that because I'm also thinking about editing while I'm doing it. But
Do you know, I think there's use cases for that type of role in certain types of content, right?
yeah,
But I think in your case, for example, and as in many creators' cases in the world of, you know, digital content, YouTube content, I think there could be something very liberating about taking the thing that you basically love the most and allowing you to focus on that, and you know, assigning the other tasks of what's necessary to deliver on that content to someone
yeah,
else. Because then I think you, who are good at what they do, because I think at the end of the day, then what you get is sometimes a better product. Not for every
yeah,
piece of content. I'm not suggesting that you should produce the way we produce Bike to Bites for everything that you do, but I think there might be some things as you start to continue to develop content that, you know, you should focus just on this, you know. And
yeah, yeah,
you know, you
yeah,
and I have had talks about like where you, what you love and what you're passionate about,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
I can tell you, I mean, I can see it from both aspects. There's
Me too.
you know, there's definitely aspects of it to me where I'm like, man, I would love to just give this footage to somebody else and let them deal with the story. You know, like I know I captured what happened, you know, and but yeah, it's really interesting to think about it in the way that I think as a YouTube creator, you don't think about how many hats you're wearing. You're just like, how do I make this happen? You
Yeah,
know,
because you're not only wearing those hats, you're also doing promotion. You're also doing,
yeah,
you know, you're trying to, you know, get sponsors. Like
yeah,
you are running a business,
yeah.
in all facets of it. And you were the, you know, what is it? What do they call it? You know, the head chef, something, and bottle washer.
Oh yeah,
Cook and bottle. I mean, that's what you do when you do the kind of content
yeah,
creation and some of the stuff that you do. But like, it's and it's hard. I mean, I admire what you guys do. It's amazing. I mean, I watch a lot of your content. I watch a lot of your friends' content. It's great stuff.
yeah,
But it's also, I've seen friends who've been very successful on YouTube just burn out too. And
yeah. It's
I
very
think,
typical.
yeah, and I think you've got to, you know, maybe it's a mix, maybe it's a balance between, I'm going to do some content like this because that'll get those juices flowing the way I like them. You
Yeah,
know, I want to do some content like this where I can liberate myself a little bit from these other things and just focus on this because this is what I want to be the highlight of what I'm trying to do from a
hmm,
storytelling standpoint. So I think it really depends. I mean, look, I'm now starting to dip my toe into, you know, some short form digital content, and what does that look like and how does that work? And it's very interesting to me, but it's a lot of work. It's a
yeah.
lot of work. I give you
Do
guys
you
a lot of
think
credit.
there's a future in like, from your perspective of television, that there will be teams that attack a television type show, but in the idea, like in that like way that they work, the way that you're accustomed to working, but primarily to make like YouTube content?
Yeah, it's happening now. I mean, that's
Yeah.
happening now. I mean, look
Do
what
you
just
think that
happened.
that like
Just
takes
look
the
at,
place of more television, or do you
yeah,
think
I
that,
think so. And I think the
yeah,
networks are scared out of their mind as a result of it. And so
yeah,
they're really trying to figure out that we're in a new media landscape driven by this digital revolution. And, you know, there's a staggering statistic. You know, if you look at Mr. Beast, right? His audience, okay, his audience surpasses all of the top 10 Netflix shows combined, right?
yeah,
Hence the reason why Amazon just did a deal with them to create a television property, but on the Amazon platform, you know, in a competition show that's going to give
yeah,
away the largest sum of money in the history of game shows, you know.
right,
So you know, that he was a YouTube star. I mean,
yeah,
he was incubated and developed and has done phenomenally well, and he's super talented and, and brilliant, in my
Yeah.
opinion, in terms of
Yeah.
what he's
Yeah.
able to accomplish.
Yeah. It's very interesting. It's very interesting to think of how the future is with that stuff because, I mean, most of the younger generations, like television is not necessarily something that they think of. They watch their favorite YouTubers or their favorite TikTokers or whatever. Like really social media is where they get their stuff, right? And I think that it's interesting to think about a future, and whether it's YouTube or some other platform or something like that, but where there's like syndicated, with air quotes, type of shows right next to like the guy that's in his garage, filming whatever. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I don't think creation of original content, I don't think it's going to go away. Like television series aren't going to. I think it's the way in which it's going to be consumed and how it's going to be
Yeah.
delivered is changing. I mean, we're seeing that already, and so I think nonfiction television, like the kind of stuff that we do, which is not
Yeah.
scripted, is also going to find new ways to distribute itself beyond its original incubator stage.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see YouTube shows turned into mainstream shows that are available on new digital platforms. And so
Yeah.
I do think it's going to be an intertwined media landscape of the future. And I think I think the industry is going to contract and consolidate. I'm not predicting anything that's not already happening. It's what's going on as we speak. And I think, it's what's interesting to me is I came back into original content in a way that I wasn't in it 12 years ago. And let me specifically talk about what I mean by that. Like back when I was producing television for the networks, it was very typical that they do what they would do a deal, what they would call a commissioned deal. So you as the producer go out, you find a talent, let's say like you, Rob. I develop a series around you. I create a sizzle reel. You and I contract with each other, and all those costs to get to that point are borne by me, the producer, at that time. So I'm developing a show sometimes for one of these networks. I've probably got $50,000 in before I even step into their office and pitch them. And now I'm pitching them. And if I'm lucky, back then, they would say, oh, I like this. Let's do a pilot. So they give you one episode. So that one episode is not even going to make up the 50,000 you're in a hole, right? And back then, you would just turn over all of your intellectual property rights to them because they were commissioning you to produce for them. You basically were working for them. And if you were really, and I have friends that have very successful production companies, lucky enough to sell into them and then have that pilot go to series and that series go into season 2 and 3, and then another show that you sell through and another show now you're starting to make the money on the volume of the commissioned work, but the networks were still controlling the intellectual property and the exploitation of those rights. Fast forward 12 years later, and being in business with a guy who has a mindset that came from that world. He was a 20-year veteran, the guy from EarthX TV, a 20-year veteran of Discovery Networks. He understood the challenges for a producer developing original content. And I understood what it takes to launch a brand new network. And, when dollars are tight and you're trying to make so much money go as far as it possibly can. So I think what we were able to construct with each other was a deal arrangement very different than the ones that I did 12 years ago that put a lot more power and control in the hands of us, the creators and the producers, but it was equitable, right? Because they also had benefits that they were able to realize as a result of the relationship that we created. And I think that paradigm shift has now opened up opportunities. The fact that the landscape has changed so dramatically and that content is being consumed across all of these streaming networks and, what they call fast channel. And, fast channel is AVOD and SVOD and, OTT, SVOD, subscription, video on demand, AVOD, advertising supported video on demand, OTT over the top. these opened up opportunities for producers to sell their content elsewhere,
Right.
and construct some deals that were a little bit more favorable to equitable, I should say, to both the producer and the distributor. And I think that was what was exciting for me to come back in to the business again. And and the most exciting part, honestly, was like, man, I am living. This is not a job, what I'm doing
Yeah.
in this show. This is like, I'm riding my bike. I'm eating great food. I'm meeting these unbelievable people, these chefs who are doing incredible things and cooking with sustainability and local sourcing and I'm how do you don't get a better gig than that, and I
Mhm.
feel very, very grateful every day that I've been able to do that. I mean, look, I haven't quit my day job. We have a very robust corporate side of our business, and I'm grateful for that too. But I love the fact that my brain gets to flex in two different directions. And I think my wife did me a solid favor in helping me get my mojo back. That's what
That's
was
awesome.
that was the whole point. And I feel like even on our corporate jobs, I'm bringing a level of creativity as a result of the work that we do in this original content space to the table. I'm able to look at things with a different perspective. So it's been great.
Yeah. How do you guys film the writing stuff? Is it just all you're filming it with like action cameras by yourself, or do you have somebody else that's coming with you, or like doing how do you do that aspect of it?
Yeah. So we tried a couple things in season one, and we kind of made some modifications in season two. But um, there were multiple cameras that we were utilizing to get different perspectives. So there was of course, I had a GoPro on my helmet. I had a GoPro extended on an arm off the handlebars of my bike because I know a lot, and I hope nobody on YouTube starts to like scream at me, but it makes me very, very nervous when I see YouTubers who are cyclists who are filming and holding on to the bars of the bike with one hand and holding out a camera with their other hand, because we all know like stuff can happen, and you
Yeah.
want to try to mitigate as much as possible. And look, don't get me wrong, they get some great shots and it's wonderful. So we tried to rig season one this pole device that was, but you could see it when I ride. You can see the pole, which is fine, but it allowed me to be the camera that I talk to while I'm riding, and then the
Hmm.
GoPro on my head gave me the POV of what's in front of me. And then we flew drones, and we had cars rigged with cameras that were riding by my side, and getting that angle. So multiple angles to
Right
kind of
on.
capture the content.
Yeah, it makes a lot of different options. Would you shoot those like car shots like without the other cameras on your bike in your head so that you could give the perception that it wasn't there, or did you just shoot it all with it
We
there?
shot
Or
it with the cameras on there. And, but the funny thing is we started to get in season two, like take the cameras off. Like you don't need them while we're doing the car shots. It doesn't,
yeah,
I'm a big, like, I was a big stickler for continuity. Well, wait a second. You're going to, 1 minute I have the cameras on, the next minute I have the cameras off. People are going to know that they weren't shot in that sequence. And, and I,
yeah,
I was trying to stay very, very true to form. Like people ask me all the time, dude, you don't ride that whole route, do you? Like, and I go, yeah, of course I
yeah,
do. The way the production's, because I was very, very hell bent on wanting to be authentic,
yeah.
we're going to say that something's 15 miles or 40 miles and it's a route that you can ride, then I want to ride the route. So we were on a 3-day shoot schedule. Our first day, we usually got to town. I would go with our showrunner and we would scout by car. And then I would adjust the route based on some things that I was seeing. I'd go back that night and I would enter the route into my GPS based on what we had scouted. And then typically I would either go back and ride the route that night or that day on my bike by myself, or I'd get up early in the morning and my team on their day off, because we usually had a day off when we arrived to a city. The next day was a day off. But on
Hmm.
their day off, the crew, I would have them rig me with audio and cameras on the bike and on my helmet, and I would go out and ride the route. And I would ride the whole thing. And I would get that footage as extra footage that we would have as our assets that we could use
Yeah.
to edit. And then the next day, which was really the first day of shooting, we would usually do one restaurant and half a day and a half a day of B-roll, or we would do 2 restaurants in a day and then a full day of B-roll and then another day with 2 restaurants. So there'd be a 3-day shoot week. But we were in a city for 5 days and I was working every one of those days to get that extra footage. So
So
yeah.
when you're shooting a day of B-roll, what are you just like hanging out in the restaurant, filming the cook, filming the people walking in the door? Like,
so the B-roll that we would shoot on that B-roll day was all cycling footage. So it was all route footage. So it was the drone shots, it was the car to bike shots, it was all of that. It was me pulling up to the entrance of a restaurant shot.
Right.
And then sometimes what we would do is when I was at a restaurant, we would pick up me doing the entrance to the restaurant and the exit to the restaurant at that same time. And so it would all cut together. But like we shot those where they, I'm pulling up, and leaving, not riding the whole thing to get there. But because I wanted it to be authentic, I insisted that I ride the whole route on my day off so that nobody could say to me, "Oh, what'd you do? Just pull the bike off the car and ride up to the restaurant and say, here I am." I did not want that to be the case. We wanted to be authentic.
So how much do you guys like tell the story of the route itself versus the food?
It's half-hour television distills down to 23 minutes of television because of commercials and all that other stuff. So in 23 minutes, you're covering 4 restaurants. Cycling was prevalent, very much so, but it wasn't weighted as much as the restaurants because it couldn't be, just the math.
Yeah.
But I think we tried to, we definitely mapped visually on the show, like through a digital representation of the route and where we were going. We showed the segments of me doing some riding in between each of the segments, calling out. So
the format is like, hey, I'm starting this ride and I'm riding to this restaurant and then I'm riding to this brewery and then I'm riding to this other restaurant. So it's like, that's the way that the story arc goes, is that you're going to these places. Are you going through like, hey, I'm going to have a beer and then I'm going to have lunch and then I'm going to have a dessert? Or is it like a little bit of everything? Or
a little bit of everything. We try to at least cover breakfast, lunch, and dinner items on a ride, but it doesn't mean that I have to start my route with breakfast and end with dinner.
Yeah.
Because some people like breakfast for dinner. So we try to do what makes sense, just the geography of it. And I think that's really what drives us. And in that planning of where we're stopping in the sequencing of the show, we try to have enough dishes that kind of cover all of it. And then what I'm very, very involved in picking the restaurants and in some of the pre-production phone calls that we have with the chefs or restaurateurs. And what was really important for me as an executive producer was I wanted to pick restaurants that truly represented like the ethos of a city, right? Like you would go here and you would ride the route that I'm riding and visit these restaurants. By doing that, you would have a pretty good sense of what this city was, both from a visual representation of what we saw along the way, and from a culinary standpoint, the taste of the city that you could get by visiting some of these places. Like for Philadelphia, for example, on the one hand, we went to Pat's King of Steaks, famous Philly cheesesteaks, right? And on the other hand, the other end of the spectrum, we went to Zahav, which is multiple James Beard award-winning chef, phenomenal restaurant in Philadelphia. And we did all of it. And I think what's unique about that, same in Chicago. In Chicago, we had, a Top Chef winner from 2016, Chef Joe Flem, and top of the game, unbelievable culinary experience. But then we did Mr. Beef and Pequod's Pizza, because how do you go to Chicago and not have deep dish pizza, or Italian beef sandwich? So I think the whole point of the show is to try to at least give people who are watching a sense of, wow, like this is a city I could go to and they've got a lot to offer. And the one thing that comes to mind all the time, and I always use this as an example, but I feel really strongly about it. Season 1, I picked St. Louis as one of the cities. And every one of the people that I know, friends, went, why are you going to St. Louis? They got a lot of crime in St. Louis. And I'm like, oh, come on, guys. Like you don't know the city. Have you been? So we
Yeah.
went to St. Louis, and I will tell you, St. Louis is a very cool city and has a lot to offer. And it's got great education, great sports culture, great food scene, unique neighborhoods within the city, a great cycling infrastructure. So, and that was the other thing. Every city that we pick, we try to find a city that's really cycling friendly and it's got a
Hmm.
lot to offer from a cycling perspective, either through cycle paths or rail trails or, really nicely laid out, bike lanes on major roads so that it's safe for you to ride in the city. Um, and I think we had a nice selection between season 1 and season 2 so far. So
Yeah. So the network that your show is on, like, where is that network at? Like,
So currently it's a small network, right?
uh-huh.
And that's what happens when you're launching a brand new network. So initially they started in 11 million homes. And then by I think the time that we aired, they were in like 18 million homes. And so they could be found now on, if you have Spectrum cable, you can find EarthX TV and you can find Bike to Bytes. If you have Direct TV, you can find EarthX TV and find Bike to Bytes. They're on a couple of streaming networks here in the US on Fubo. So if you're a Fubo subscriber, you can find EarthX TV and Bike to Bytes. And then currently internationally, it's on Sky TV and the UK and Ireland. And
Mhm.
so it's out there. I think now they're in about 50 million homes, something like that, and globally.
Yeah.
But they're going through growth, and so I'm sure they're going to figure out things as they continue to try
Yeah.
to hone in on their own kind of brand and messaging.
So because of that way that show is like sold the way that you were explaining to us earlier, like that's why you don't have like a YouTube channel that is specifically showing all these episodes.
Yeah, so we can't show the full episodes on YouTube, but we are able to show some short form content on YouTube, which we have
Hmm.
been putting up on our YouTube channel, and
Yeah.
we continue to do so. We have our podcasts, which are available both on YouTube and anywhere you consume podcasts audio wise. So I think we're trying, and those vehicles of getting that content out rest with us, the production company, and so
Yeah.
we're and the network is fully supportive of our initiatives on that front. But yeah, I mean, I think our goal is to try to find a bigger audience for the show and continue to
Hmm.
grow. We've gotten great feedback. I've also gotten some very interesting comments, and
Yeah.
you probably know this from your own experiences on YouTube. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been told I look like Howie Mandel.
Oh, there you go.
I'll
Is
take
that could be good. It could be bad. I don't know. It depends on how you
you know
feel
what?
about it.
I'll take it. I don't.
Yeah.
If somebody's going to comment and tell me I look like somebody, that's fine. And
Yeah.
people are very gracious and kind. I haven't found a lot of unkind people in terms of comments and things that have come back. Everything has been really very, and there's some
Yeah.
people, somebody beat me up over not being able to say how to order a cheesesteak sandwich properly over at Pat's, but
Yeah. I'll tell you this right now. That's one thing the internet's very good at, and that's like being assholes when they want to. So don't count them out, man. They'll come sooner or later.
and
But
look, and
for the most part,
if they come, they come.
yeah, yeah,
I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I'm sure as you have become
yeah.
comfortable
I
in
think
your
for the
own.
most part, people are good, and I think a lot of times, even sometimes some comments that you can read, you may not be able to really understand, like, oh, they were actually joking, or maybe sometimes when they write the comment, they don't realize that, oh, if that guy reads it this way, it sounds like I'm really being a jerk, but I was just trying to, like, like nudge them in the ribs, um I think there's a few people out there that give the internet a bad name, but overall, I think, I at least live my life thinking that generally people are good people,
That's how I live my life, and I think
Yeah,
that's the way I think a lot of us should live our lives because I think we'd
yeah,
be in a much better place. But in
yeah.
terms of worldview, but yeah, just be good people.
So when you're picking out these cities, are you picking them just because like, hey man, I've never been to St. Louis and I heard they have good stuff there? Or is it like, oh, I've been there, I really like this restaurant? Or like how, what goes into you selecting where you want to go?
So it starts with what would be an interesting, cool city to go to, whether I've been there or not.
Mm-hmm.
What city has some really cool cycling infrastructure that I actually get to see the city on two wheels in an enjoyable fashion and not feel like I was going to get plowed down, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of cycling through it. What has a great food scene? What does the city have to offer outside of food in terms of culture, museums, sports teams, restaurants? All of
Mm-hmm.
it comes into play. And and some cities I go back to, like, because I have nostalgia or there's a connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you asked me that, because like the sizzle, back to the sizzle reel, we did the Jersey Shore. So,
Mm-hmm.
this is where I grew up. This is,
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted to, it's in my backyard. It was easy for us to produce it here. And ironically, when they told me they wanted the show, they wanted to go to a series, we had submitted a list of other cities that we wanted to do for a season one. And Jersey wasn't on it because we were just like, Jersey was just the sizzle reel. But I always thought that I could go back and put Jersey into season one. And at that point, the train had left the station and we had already committed to the cities that we committed to in season one. And Jersey kind of got pushed off. And I felt so terrible. Like, wait a second. These are all my friends, some of these people that own these restaurants and whatever. And they were in the sizzle reel that got me the show sold. And now they're not even going to be able to be on, a network television show. That's terrible, And so
Yeah.
for season two, we put Jersey Shore on for season two. I went back and I did a couple of places weren't available when we were filming. So we did a couple of new ones, but still were places that I frequented. I felt like it was an homage to my area. And
Mm-hmm.
and it turned out to be a really, in that episode, this was the first that, so give some, you talk about behind the scenes. I almost had mutiny from my crew on that first episode that we were filming. It was the first kickoff of an 8-week road trip, and we were in New Jersey, my backyard, and I wanted to try to get as many people that I wanted into this episode as I could. So instead of doing 4 restaurants, I added 2 more. So we had
Right.
6. And, it starts off at the coffee shop that I go to every morning. And then I ride over to this place along the beach that has the best Italian ice that's been there forever since I was a little kid. Had to get
Oh man, I'm ready to go now.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And then
love
I
me
come
some Italian ice.
yeah, and it's Italian ice. It's not water ice, which is like
Yeah.
What Philly calls it. And then we end up, going to this other restaurant where the chef is a friend of mine, Chef David Burke, very world-renowned chef. And then continue down the shoreline, stop at this other place called One Willow, end up at my friend's. Oh, sorry, I probably did 8. I ended up 7 because I end up at my friend's brewery called Carton Brewing. And I pick up Augie, who owns the place, and we ride our bikes because he's an avid cyclist, more so
Uh-huh.
like he could kill me. But so we ride and we end at our final destination on that episode at a burger place that, my wife and I call it our diner because we're there like at least a couple times a week,
Yeah.
and I came back and we did Jersey right, and we made it right. And I think we premiered the Jersey and the Philadelphia episode in April, and we rented out one of the big theaters here, and we had
Mm-hmm.
all of those restaurants come, and they all served the food from the show. And
Oh wow, that's so cool.
it was a really cool event. I would love to do that in all the cities that we visited because it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean that could be a thing, like as like the way that you're making money for the show is the events as well.
Could be. And
Yeah.
I see a business partnership that we could
Right.
explore together.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that I mean, in my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, so you're talking about major cities, you're doing, let's just say 8 episodes a season. If it was like, at what point are you like not going to be able to go to a major city and you need to like kind of reach out to some like smaller cities or something? Like, does that story change then because of
No,
the
'cause
food situation or?
No, because we did do some smaller cities, and it wasn't always about being and that it's so great that you mentioned that, because it was really important for me also to give some love to cities that don't always get the media love, right? So there
Yeah,
are cities that are out there that, people would never think of, oh, I'm going to go to that city to go as a tourist to that city. St. Louis
right.
was one example, but it's a big city. But like Asheville, North Carolina, and is now become a very popular place to go to, but it's a much smaller
You said
city.
Asheville?
Asheville, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a huge mountain biking city for
Oh, it's
sure.
huge, yeah.
Yeah,
Cycling,
yeah.
and
Or
I
just outdoor recreation in general, though. But yeah,
so we did that. We did Eugene, Oregon. We did
yeah,
um
Eugene has a great, yeah, it's a great city too.
oh,
Yeah,
I got beat up about that too. Is it Eugene or is it Eugene? So
yeah, who knows, whatever.
so and then Solvang, California,
Uh-huh.
which is that.
Oh, that's that little like is it Danish or something like that,
Yeah.
or Norwegian
Uh-huh.
town or something.
Yeah. It's I think
I've never been there.
it's very cool. It's
Yeah, it
it's
looks
something
really neat.
it's really I, the funny thing is, in that episode I say that per capita they have one bakery for every 1,000 people that live there.
Oh
And
wow.
it's like 6,000 people that live there. There's 6 bakeries. They're all relatively close to each other. It was great. So we did do, we did Chattanooga. We didn't do
Mhm.
Nashville or Memphis.
I'd
So
like to go to Chattanooga. Yeah,
Chattanooga's fun,
yeah,
and good cycling there, and good mountain. There's some good sections
yeah,
of
yeah,
biking there too. So
yeah,
for me, it was just about like, giving some love to some cities that don't always get the media attention from a tourism destination or from a cycling destination or from a food scene,
hmm,
standpoint. So I think we found some that were really, really, that were, we did Bozeman, we did Burlington to Stowe, Vermont, uh,
yeah.
which was that was my longest ride. That was a 40-mile bike ride. Um,
When you're a second ago, you were saying you had that little fact that you dropped, and do do you guys do like a lot of research about the city, like,
yes.
or do you kind of just like go and let what happens happen and film that, or
No, we do a lot of research because you want to, you've got to, unlike, so, Guy Fieri does a show on Food Network, and diners, drive-ins, and dives. And his show, when they go to a restaurant, they'll shut the whole restaurant down,
yeah,
and then they'll do invitation only for people to come in. We don't shut the restaurant down, so we're actually shooting in a restaurant that's open and active and doing
yeah,
business, which makes it a little bit more complicated. So more reason why you want to pre-produce in a way that is being, um, you want to be respectful of the people that you're going in and filming, and making sure that it's at the right time that works for them, but allows them to keep the business open. So there's a lot of that goes into factoring how we schedule things, where we shoot, or where we film. So do a lot of research and a
yeah,
lot of pre-production conversations with. Now, we don't rehearse with any of the people that we're meeting with about what we're going to be talking about, but we
yeah.
do ask them to tell us what is their signature dish that they would like to share with us before
So
we
you
go.
leave that up to the restaurant on what they want to share.
Yep. Yep. The
Right.
research is kind of, in the research that we do, we kind of we read the reviews, we read comments, we read what people are talking about. So if they tell us a signature dish, but I've seen that there's been a lot of talk about a dish that they're not putting in the show, I might ask them, "Hey, what about this?
Yeah.
Is that still a popular dish for you?" And they go, "Oh yeah, that's." And so they'll either add that in or they'll replace it.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of, and we want, we do things that no major network would do. We give every one of the restaurants, if they ask us for footage, we give them an opportunity, the footage, to promote their restaurant. Like,
Yeah.
we're trying to do the right thing, for the
Uh-huh.
cities, for the restaurants, for those chefs who work their rear ends off, and the restaurant.
So in that situation, because there's money exchanged in places that a lot of people don't necessarily think about in media. So is there a situation there where you're paying them to be there, or they're paying you to be there, or that's just like it's a mutual
No,
benefit of like, hey, we get to make this content, you guys get to get some like some marketing material, basically.
Yeah, they get the promotion and they get the publicity and they get the ability to, in our case, we've been very, generous in terms of trying to help promote,
Yeah,
give them some assets to help promote their establishment. We don't get paid and they don't pay us.
yeah,
I'm sorry, they don't pay us and we don't pay them.
right.
And it works,
Yeah,
it works. I don't like sometimes we'll allow we'll have the crew eat lunch at one of the establishments that we're eating at. We always offer to pay. I don't ask them to give the crew
yeah,
free food, although some of them insist that we're out of our minds, and of course we're gonna
yeah,
treat them to their lunch. But we go there with the understanding that we're here to be somebody that can assist you in, putting more people into your restaurant. And
does it or is it pretty much like if you reach out to a restaurant, yeah, it's definitely going to go through, or is it a lot of times they're like, not interested?
you can get some no's because some of them have been approached by some other television shows that are out there. Some of them have done some other television shows that we also, it's another thing that I forgot to mention. We try to go and pick restaurants that haven't been put in the limelight,
Yeah,
so something that you see on our show, you might be hard pressed to find somewhere else. And
yeah,
that's by design, because the whole idea is we wanted to keep the material fresh and not just be another, oh, there's another food show featuring that restaurant.
right.
So I think we work really hard to try to make sure, and we tried to stay away from chains, and I would even call a chain not just the fast food chains, but like if you are there's a restaurant in Chicago that we looked at and I walked away from it because it's like, you know, they got like 30 or 40 stores all over the
Yeah,
place. Like I
yeah,
want
that
I
seems,
want I want the person, the man, the woman that's there, like, banging it out
yeah,
all day and impressing the local crowd that they kind of cater to. That's who I want to feature.
yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, and that's kind of like at least the gist of the feeling that I got out of the way that you told me about the show initially would be like you want something that's more authentic to that city, even if it is like a local chain or something like that. I feel like that's like different. So I like that you're doing it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's been your favorite city so far?
That's a tough question. It's
Yeah.
favorites for different reasons. I really think they've all been absolutely wonderful. I mentioned
So
St. Louis a couple of times, but like,
so here we'll do like a quick shot and just whichever comes to your mind. So the favorite ride.
favorite ride was Asheville.
Asheville. How about the
Yeah.
favorite beers?
Favorite beers? Oh, the Alchemist in Stowe, Vermont. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Hetty Topper. So,
You said you've done some breakfast place. What was the favorite breakfast?
there was I have a couple favorite breakfast place, but one that really pops is there was a place in Eugene, called now you're gonna really get me.
Uh
It's called the Lion and the oh God, you got to look it up for me.
oh. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I definitely will come back to me. But in that restaurant, I will tell you, the name is escaping me for a second, but I will tell you what I had there, and it was a buckwheat pancake,
Uh-huh.
and I love buckwheat pancakes, so maybe
What's
it's
a buckwheat pan? What is that? I don't even know what that is.
so a buckwheat pancake is a dark grain whole grain pancake. It's like the batter, the pancake itself looks like it's brown,
Uh-huh.
like really brown, but it is like it's earthy. That it's buckwheat, so it's a
Uh-huh.
earthy grain, and oh God, maple syrup on that, and
Just to die for.
yeah, it's. I'm looking it up right now. It's
Yeah,
gonna
I'll
the
ramble for
owl
a
and the
little bit.
lion, the
The
owl
what?
and the lion, the owl and the lion.
Oh, right on. In Eugene.
Yeah, and you go in there, and inside is literally in the restaurant, built into the restaurant is a full scale real Airstream. And the Airstream, you can go in there and sit in there also and dine in there, but that's also their bar, which was kind of cool. So
Right on.
yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's favorite breakfast.
How about the best burger? Where was the best burger at? I know you
Oh,
had a bunch of them. You had to.
had a few burgers. I'm going to say that they were all really, really good. I
Yeah.
love Barnacle Bill's, which is a Jersey Shore favorite of mine. It's
Uh-huh.
right here. That's the place that I ended the first episode with.
What makes their burger stand out?
Well, they do them behind the bar on a grill at the bar.
Uh-huh.
They're really thick. Their cheddar sauce makes them really special. And they put them on an English, you have to know how to ask, but you can get it put on an English muffin.
Oh, interesting.
The bacon cheddar burger on an English muffin, it's very, very good.
That's the bee's knees there.
It was. There was also a place in Austin, Texas. I think it's called the boy, you're really testing me today. This one is called, hang on. This one
You're coming up with this one on your own. I didn't even ask any questions on that
yeah,
one.
I know. This is crazy. I'm looking right now. Hang on. See, this is why
Austin, I've been to Austin. They have while you're looking it up, they have
I know what it is. Sour duck.
Sour duck.
Sour duck. They have they're a restaurant that has. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's all right. Go for it.
Thought popped into my head, and I didn't have to look.
You're golden.
It was half restaurant, half bakery, and all of the breads, all of the pastries, everything made there on premise. They're a scratch kitchen, and they make this like a challah bread, challah roll for their burger, and it's like a smash burger, double patty smash. Ridiculous, like
Yeah,
a ridiculous burger. Very, very good.
I want to go back to Austin. I haven't. I used to go to Houston for some work, and I went to Austin a while back for to meet up with another YouTuber, and we rode. They have a lift access mountain bike park there in Austin, actually, or outside Austin, and it was super fun. It was like, honestly, it was really, really good time. When do you think? Well, actually, let me take a step back. You said that you've tried mountain biking. How did that happen?
You're gonna embarrass me now. So I have a friend of mine who's a restaurateur here in Jersey, who's probably about 15 years older than me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But always was like super athletic, like snowboarder, adventure seeker. And I saw him one day, and he had told me like, oh, I go and I mountain bike over here at Hartshorn Woods with a bunch of guys, and it's really great exercise. It's great to be outside. He goes, you should try it. So when I commit to something, I go all in, and sometimes that's a mistake. So I was like, I go in to the same store that I bought the carbon fiber, hybrid bike, gravel. And I go into them and I go, hey, I want to get a mountain bike. And I've never mountain biked in my life. I'm not just renting one or borrowing one. I'm like all in saying, I want to buy a mountain bike.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to do it.
So I bought this mountain bike, and I go out to those. I begged him to come with me, and he couldn't come with me. So I couldn't ride with any of the group, and nor would I probably have wanted to, because I would have been dusted.
Yeah, maybe it would have been good though. Maybe somebody could have given you some pointers or something.
Yeah, maybe. I think
where the story goes.
You're absolutely right, because you and I have talked about I am going to try it again, and I'm going to try it with you, because you're very kind and gracious. I've ridden with you in another ride, which was a gravel ride, and we can talk about that after. But you were always, supportive and, positive, right? So I think that's what was missing from my mountain bike ride, is that I didn't have that voice in my ear. So I'm out there and I'm on. It's a marked trail. So there's green, blue, and black.
Yeah,
double black, just like skiing. And I'm on this green trail, and in the first I was enjoying it. I'm outside. Some of it was single track and wasn't too difficult. Somehow I got lost, and I end up on a blue trail, and I have to climb. And like climb like is an understatement. And I'm like, finally, I finally got off the damn bike, and I'm like, you know, screw this. I mean, this is what am I doing? And I'm like hiking and biking up the
Yeah.
trail to get up there. And then I get up there and I get back on the bike and I start to head down, and I'm like, oh shit. Like I am not, because I didn't have any training. Like
Yeah.
it's like, you know, who puts somebody on skis for the first time and then pushes them down the hill and says, good luck? You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
that's what it
That's
kind
what
of was.
happened to me in the military. That's what,
I'm sure. Yeah, that's exactly. So
yeah.
yeah, you can relate. So
That's exactly how I learned how to ski. I had never been downhill skiing before, right? And I I plenty of time in the snow. I grew up in Pennsylvania, but like we would go to like the local hill and get a snowboard, and we'd build a ramp like halfway down the hill, and we'd like point straight down the hill, hit the jump, and you know, fall all over the place, right? And that was really the only experience I ever had on like and snow other than a sled, right? And so I'm in Germany, and you know, all these guys that I'm hanging out with, they're all skiers, you know, so they're all like, yeah, dude, we're gonna go skiing this week. I'm like, I'm in, dude, let's do it, you know. And because they were all skiers, I was like, well, I'm gonna try skiing. I've never done that before. It sounds like it'll be fun. And so we go up there, get all the rental stuff. They literally take me straight to a black run. Like
oh god.
zero experience. Like I can barely stand on like I'm pretty much falling off the lift, you know, just trying to. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna go this way. And it's like, oh my God. It was very comical, but I will say this much. At least I was like 20 years old. So, you know, your bones are a little more pliable back then. And I would say it was definitely a very quick way to learn, because it's like either you learn or you're gonna die.
I totally can relate to that skiing story because back in college, I never skied when I was younger. Some of my friends did. I never skied. And my first time skiing, I had a girlfriend in college. She was older than me. She was out of college at the time, and she says, "Oh, we're going to go skiing." And I go, "I don't know how to ski." And she had no mercy for me up on that top of the hill. Like that was how I learned how to ski. It was like if you don't get up, you will not get down. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not here. Like, and that she was like tough. And I ended up getting down and ultimately went back up and did that a couple of
Yeah.
times. And it's so funny because you grew up in Pennsylvania. I taught my wife how to ski at Camelback.
Oh,
And
okay.
and that's where but same thing. Like I remember after her first day of skiing, teaching her the way I was taught, which is like, come on, get up. You can do it.
Yeah.
Don't like, I'm not, like, and I remember getting back to the condo and we lit the fireplace and she's taking off her ski clothes and like, she looked like a bunch of grapes, man. I mean,
Someone just beat her up.
she was just like all black and blue. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the last run of that day. I had like gotten to a point where basically I could stay standing for as long as it took me to get to like light speed. And then I would just eat shit and like yard sale everything everywhere. And I want to say we probably ended up on, you know, how like a lot of different runs will end up in like a green run that maybe takes you down to like the main part of the hill or something like that. And I remember we were on this, like, it had to have been a green run, you know, compared to everything else that we were on that day. And I just remember just like pointing straight down the hill, and and I'm just picking up speed and picking up, because I don't know how to carve. I don't know how, like, I don't know how to do anything other than stand. And of course, you know my personality, you know, from us talking and everybody that watches the channel. It's like instantly I go from like, I just was laying on my back a second ago, now I'm passing you, I'm going to talk shit as I do it, right? You know, so I'm like, you know, F you and look at you, you know, I'm just freaking rocketing. And then you get to the point where it's like, wow, I'm going so fast, I have no idea what to do. And of course my skis end up, you know, like they start, you know, shimmering or like, you know, kind of bouncing around a little bit. Next thing you know, they cross, and I just eat shit like there's no tomorrow. And I remember feeling like like one butt cheek was in one state and one butt cheek was put to another state, you know, and I'm just laying there on the ground. I don't have any of my gear, like no poles, no skis. I'm just laying there. My rear end's throbbing. Like I'm thinking it's like pulsing blood, you know, like that's how bad it is. And I'm just laying there thinking like, oh God, here come my friends. They're going to be, you know, talking salt. They're going to be talking shit in a second. And this like little German girl skis up, you know, like 5 years old with like my poles in her hand. And she's like, you know, here in German. And I'm like, oh God, this is so demoralizing. So
But you
that was
learn.
the end of my first day. So apparently I took that experience. And then my friends were like, hey, let's go to Austria and ski the Alps. And I was like, I'm in.
Wow. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah. And
no,
so
it's funny though how those experiences can sometimes, as scary in the moment that they are, they do kind of prepare you and
yeah.
give you motivation. Like I will tell you, you know, you and I rode together with your wife at and you know, and we talked about this a while ago. But what I will say is, you inspired me to get better. Right? I'm not
Mm-hmm.
a climber, or I can climb, but I wasn't proficient in climbing on a bicycle as much as I would have liked to have been, and I didn't realize until I went to California and started riding with you when we first met in Monterey, and I was like, "Shit, there's some climbing there. Like it's climbing." Now,
Yeah.
people who do it every day might not appreciate for somebody who's coming from relatively flat land, you know, to come out there and just think that they can get on a bike and start climbing and be and do it with excellence. It's not gonna, you know, it's not gonna
Yeah.
happen, right? So you
I
need
think
to
it's,
kind of build up to it, and so
yeah.
what I want to thank you for is because ever since I left you a couple months ago when we first met, I have been really doing interval training. There's a hill right out here, about 2 miles straight up, you know, on an average of a 5-6% grade, but some points it's 12,
Yeah.
14, and it's 2 miles up and then you come down. And I've been doing that twice a week, 3 times up, 3 times down, 3 times up, 3 times, like for,
Yeah.
for both days. So I went out today with my friend who's a master bike mechanic and he's coach, and he has me out there because he got me going the first time, and he's like, dude, he goes, your cadence is really good. He goes, you're doing like 7-8 miles an hour up a hill
Yeah.
and you're not out of breath, man. Like
Yeah.
you're doing what, you know, you're doing what you set out to do. And that was all inspired by you and your lovely wife. So
Oh, thank you, man. That
thank you for
definitely
that.
like I think that when you're riding bike, whatever you're doing is like where your comfort level of pain is, right? So and you're like, maybe when you first started, you said it was like 3 miles, and then you're working it up and you get to 40 miles, but maybe you're not doing a lot of elevation, but in your mind, you're like, dude, I've come a long way. You know, like this is huge. And I it's very easy to be humbled by going somewhere else, you know, and even me as somebody who like climbs a lot here, you know, like I can go to another state and it's like the way that their terrain is there is maybe it's wetter than what I'm used to, or it's rooty, or like, and it's like, man, I'm getting my ass handed to me. And so it's good to get uncomfortable, and then like it's awesome that at the same time, then that gave you something that gave you a goal to chase after, you know? And
Oh yeah.
I think at the end of the day, like the thing that's really like rad is that your body's such an efficient machine that like whatever you throw at it, like it'll be like, all right, let's just
Yeah.
keep doing it, and
Someone's
I'll
pushed
get
that
you there.
button to get me going. I better get
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really cool, man. You know, and it's I obviously I'm super biased. Like I think cycling's just I like it in for so many reasons, you know, and um think getting out there and doing something hard is really good for you mentally, you know, regardless of what it is.
It's funny that you say that because today I got up at 6 o'clock this morning. I usually get up at around 6:30, right? And then I'm out the door by like 7:15. Usually don't do an exercise regimen in the morning. I'll either midday, I'll take a lunch break from here with my bike from my office, and I'll do a ride and come back, or I'll do Peloton later in the evening when I get home.
Mhm.
But so getting up at 6 o'clock and being out the door to get to my office where I met up with my friend who's the coach at
Mhm.
7, I had a banana and some water. And I told him, I go, dude, like I'm not feeling it today. I think I can only do like 2. And he wasn't having it. He just was like, but he said, put those thoughts out of your mind,
Yeah.
get the negativity out. Let's just set out to go ride. And let's once we start riding, see how you feel. So we went up the first time. And after the first time, I was like, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. And then came back down. We went back up the second time. It was harder, but I managed
Yeah.
it and felt really. And by the time I got up to the second climb, I was like, yeah, I feel really energized now. I don't
Yeah.
feel like I can't tackle it. And he goes, you got a third? I go, yeah, man, let's do a third. And we
Right
did.
on.
And so I think it's just a mindset of like the
Yeah.
challenge, the goal that I set for myself. Like I
Yeah.
want to come back out and see you guys and be able to
Yeah.
do a ride with some climbing and be like, not have it feel like I'm scared,
Yeah. Yeah.
have it feel like I'm feeling comfortable. And
Yeah. Do you use Strava?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's really fun for that stuff because then you can see like you can make a segment of that hill
Yep.
and then you'll know like exactly, hey, I'm getting faster for sure. And I would do a segment both ways, like a segment up and a segment down.
It's funny today because he thought today was like my fastest time. And actually, the time that I rode by myself was my fastest time, not when I rode with him. And that was
Yeah.
kind of funny because I think he's also trying to like pace me, coach me. He's giving me, he's looking at me from behind and saying, put the egg between your legs. Don't, because like reminding me to keep my legs in the right position. So that just in and of itself slows you down because you're
Mhm.
getting pointers as you're
Yeah.
going up. So you're learning. And so that when you go back out, hopefully you take the learning with you and you perform better because of what you just got coached with, which was exactly what had happened first time he coached me compared to the second time I rode by myself. There was an
Yeah.
improvement. So I'm
Yeah. And
super
sometimes though,
excited.
too, like just your own like you're just pushing yourself mentally and you're like, oh, I'm not going fast enough, so you keep pushing more and you're like, I'm this is going to be horrible, and then you get done and you look at your time and you're like, holy cow, man, I was like killing it.
So funny, you and I, we've talked about this. Like, I know you love this, you love the descent and the speed and the challenge of riding your mountain bike down some of those single tracks and things of that nature. I do like speed, but I know my comfort zone. Like I will not allow myself to get above a certain speed because I know that
Mhm.
for me, it makes me really uncomfortable. But like,
Yeah, yeah.
I remember shooting the Asheville episode and I was on the Blue Ridge Parkway on a descent. And at one point I looked down at my speedometer and I'm like at 38 miles an hour. And I'm like, for me, now some people will say who ride a lot are like, that's not, we've gone faster than that. Great.
That
Yeah, but
seems fast to me, man.
for me, a friend of mine
Especially
said it. My friend said it to me. He goes, it doesn't matter whether it's fast or not. It's fast enough that if you fall, something
yeah,
bad's going to happen.
yeah.
you
Well,
know?
I also think it doesn't matter if it's fast to anybody else than you.
Right.
Like realistically, like if I'm going down a hill and I'm scared at 15 miles an hour, it doesn't mean that 30 doesn't, like somebody else 30 could be where that mark is. But
Exactly my
and
point. So you have your
yeah,
own tolerance about
yeah,
what works for you. And I feel like he was telling me today on my descents, he's like, you're really comfortable. You're very technical and you're really comfortable. And and that's because I'm in my own comfort zone, right? I'm
yeah,
doing what I feel is right for me. And um, but I like the reward of, this ride that we do. You come up, you're gonna have to come out and do this with me. You come up to this and when you reach the top, it's the town that I live in, or I ride in rather, is this town is called Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. And you when you get up to the top, you're at like a 300-foot elevation, and your view is you're looking out into Sandy Hook Bay and you see the Manhattan skyline. And it's like almost a reward every single time you make it to the top,
Yeah.
because you get up there and it's like, not only are you on a flat road, but like you're looking at this unbelievable, sun's just coming up,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're seeing New York, it's
That's
just,
awesome.
it's awesome. So I like those, the rewards within the ride, I think, are the best. And and
Yeah.
everybody has what their own rewards are. Some of it could be a
Yeah.
flat road. Some of it could be some piece of scenic that you're seeing that just is like, makes you smile. So
Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun.
So in terms of the show, whenever you first started this, you like came into work and you're like, look, guys, this is what we're going to do. And I'm sure the other people in the office are like, all right, we're doing like Garrett's little pet project here. And
That's exactly what they said.
did you see them actually get the same benefits of the creativity out of it as well? Like, how has that changed you guys at work? And like, do you have the now possible aspiration to try something else?
Yeah, they want to do more of them. They want to do more of the original content work. And in fact, we're working on a couple of really exciting projects right now. One of them is related to the subject matter that the first show is about. I'm not hosting it, but I'm super excited about it. And so, yeah, I think that we've gotten recharged in terms of that end of the business that we'd like to get back, because we feel like we can get back to it on terms that are acceptable to us, that we feel like we're not just being, brutalized by a deal that doesn't reward us for the great work that we can create. And so I think that we now have vehicles that allow us to create great work and be rewarded equitably and fairly. The motivation is there to do it, and seeing the creative product on the screen, and seeing what people's hard work was able to deliver is very rewarding. And so I think everybody here would love to do more of it. And so we're on a mission to bringing back the original content side of our business, and that's going to take some investment. That's going to take but an investment of a different nature from when we did it the first time. We've learned from our lessons from 12 years ago. We're taking that knowledge and that experience, and we're applying it to how to best execute and deliver in today's media climate. And I think we're really excited about what's in front of us. So,
is there a difference when you're pitching to like regular television versus like Amazon or a Netflix type of thing?
No, because Amazon and Netflix basically are television, it's distribution in a different form, but I should say they are entertainment companies. And so the pitching and the convincing someone to buy into something is the same. But I think there are different deal constructs that are out there now that allow you to get very creative and innovative in terms of the way in which you partner with those outlets, so that they win, you win. It's not just feeling like you're working for them. My reward for doing a show 12 years ago and having it picked up by a network was, thank you very much. Now you can spend the next 9 months working on a series where we will just be basically, you'll be working for us, and you'll be, and you are not in control. This paradigm that we're living in now gives creatives more. And I thank the digital landscape for that. The world that you live in is a big reason why that environmental change has happened. I think the paradigm shift has happened because people are realizing that, I don't need a traditional network to be able to make great content that people are willing to consume. And so I think we have, as creators, better footing than we did 12 years ago. So.
Is there any kind of like animosity or kind of like power struggle between like people that do television and more syndicated stuff compared to like people that are in the social media landscape or something like that?
I think probably the big networks are envious of what's been able to happen in the digital world that they didn't fully see coming, right? So I think there is that. And as a result, a lot of them tried to buy their way into the game by acquiring digital outlets, streaming outlets, and or trying to spend massive amounts of dollars launching their own and trying to innovate themselves. But I think what's happening is, like I said earlier, there's going to be this consolidation that's happening because everybody wanted to get into the game, and not many people are turning a profit in that game. And so I think they have no choice but to figure out how do we, and if you look at some of the big media deals that are being talked about today, it's about trying to figure out how do we merge and meld and create a different, a different model than would have been done in the past. So I do think there was some, I think, believe me, traditional network executives are probably just still shaking their heads over the fact that these digital networks such as YouTube and Netflix are cutting huge sports deals, and Amazon. And so like they were never players in that space, and now they're big players in that space.
Yeah.
So.
Do some of those stations, like let's just say like food or travel, like you said you've worked in, like some of those stations before, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is just my understanding, is like the way that they would like sell their network, so to speak, to like Comcast so that they could be part of their package, right? And now that almost every one of these brands have their own like streaming platform, is that changing the way that they operate as well, because they're then able to like kind of deliver their own content and their own, like have their own revenue stream that's like actually just direct to customer, like direct to customer, I guess.
They're no longer beholden on a single linear form of distribution, linear television.
Right.
So the world has become unplugged
Yeah.
from cable, reliance on cable. The internet has created opportunity for those brands to build their own digital platforms and be successful without having to pay carriage fees and things of that nature. So yeah, it has completely changed the landscape. And
So like
within that, within that, there's a lot of competition, and they still, many of them are not very profitable. And so they've got to figure out, which is, why you're seeing this big, what they call fast channel, where, or AVOD, advertising video on demand, where, advertising is supporting free content through the internet as opposed to a linear form of distribution like a traditional cable network.
Do they then like, would a channel, and I'm just gonna say like Food Network just because it's what's on my mind right now, but it could be any network for that matter. Are they like picking up shows and things like that they're not delivering on their linear format, but they're having on their like their direct like video form? Like,
yeah, they'll do series specific to their digital platforms, and they'll do crossovers as well. And a lot of those networks, like, Food Network has made big investments in talent, right? And so they're trying to leverage those investments that they've made in those talent deals across multiple products that they have, i.e. the digital product and the traditional linear product. So they're leveraging everything that they can to try to capture eyeballs and ultimately generate ad dollars to support,
So in that, there's even more opportunities then for creatives than there used to be. Like where there would only be so many hours in the day before that they would have a TV show on, right? So like if they weren't going to push somebody out, they weren't going to pull somebody in, right? Where now it's like, hey, you could get a deal and you're just on the website for a while, and if that starts pulling in a lot of views, then maybe you do get pushed in.
But those deals are still somewhat limited to back to the point of profitability. And there's been headlines as of late, massive cuts at some of these big media entities, and a pullback on where they're allocating dollars for original content. The bar has been raised high in terms of what they're greenlighting. Greenlighting is a word for saying yes to a pickup. So it's become, to some degree, yes, the landscape is wider, but it's become even more competitive because profitability is driving a lot of decisions and trying to turn these companies that have been, costing or draining lots of dollars for years, trying to get them back to a place of profitability requires some consolidation, requires some efficiencies, requires some being very deliberate in terms of the kinds of content that they're going to invest in that's going to give them the biggest bang for the buck. So it's a tough media market right now. I would argue that in, where you're at in terms of the world that you play in, there's great opportunities there, because your cost of entry to do what you do is fairly it's manageable, and you're only really
Yeah.
supporting your
Yeah, it
brand.
doesn't cost me $50,000 to make an episode. That's for sure.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of technology, both in the way in which we deliver the content and then also in the way we capture the content. These are being used all over the place as means to capture content. Smaller camera footprints. I can pull out a camera that we use, this camera right here. This is how series are being shot. Not the big ginormous cameras that we used to shoot with, and the cost of these, is.
So for the people listening, he's holding like basically what you would think of in your mind if somebody said 35 millimeter or a digital camera, like a real camera.
Yeah, this is a mirrorless digital camera. This is a Sony camera.
Yeah.
And it can shoot, 8K video. It's got the, or 6K video.
Yeah.
And high quality video imaging.
Yeah, I mean the video you can get out of an iPhone right now even is like just phenomenal. Like if you were doing a YouTube channel that was not even like, let's just say not mountain biking, so it's like something static where you're talking or vlogging or something like that, like 100% you could do that whole thing on an iPhone, no problem. It's like the quality is good enough.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's crazy. It's right there in your pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's absolutely insane what you can create now for the cost of entry being so much less than what the cost of entry used to be. I mean, our cameras that we used to shoot shows with were, $50,000 cameras by the time you put all the glass, the lenses on them. And, so like now you don't have to. Now, look, if I'm shooting a feature film, there's a camera that's better for that than maybe the camera that I'm going to shoot a show with. But like back in 2010, we shot a 1-hour special for Food Network. That was the one that I told you that was nominated for the James Beard Award. People thought we were crazy because we shot that entire 1-hour doc with digital SLRs and old vintage Nikkor lenses. And the look, that show is called The Four Horsemen. And the look of that show, if you put it up today and watched it, you'd think you're watching something today on a Netflix or on a Hulu, because it had that cinematic look that has still held. And we shot it in a very unconventional way that people thought the editing workflow for that show, insanity. These are cameras that you could only run for like 10 minutes before they started to overheat.
Oh, wow. That sounds fun.
Yeah. So crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure. So you've been doing this a while. How was it that you originally got into it?
Wow. When I was in high school, there was a local cable operator. They were new, just starting to build cable franchises in towns across the country. And part of their charter was that they had to provide some original programming to the local community. And if we had these old cable boxes that you pushed the button to change the channel to what.
Yeah. I remember those.
Yeah. And they would have this one screen that would come up, and it was all the multicolored with the type on screen with public service announcements. And that was what they were defining as their commitment to their local charter of providing local programming, until we challenged it. I was a sophomore in high school. I went in and I made the case that you have an obligation to provide original content. We would like to produce, a bunch of kids would like to produce a TV show. And so we started doing a local kids TV show.
Oh, that's right. What was the show about?
It was called Cable Youth Network. And it was a bunch of kids from the high school doing all types of programming, like movie reviews, local concert reviews,
Oh, that's so cool.
And it was a lot of fun. And then I guess that was my freshman year of high school. My sophomore year of high school, we decide to do a telethon, and it was the first ever locally produced and televised telethon for leukemia. And there was a young guy in our class that had just gone into remission, and he really went through a lot, and almost died. And so we were like, I had this idea to do this telethon. So I sent out packets to all of the high schools around the county asking for talent to come and audition. We auditioned talent, and we had kids from our class hosting in tuxedos the show. It was done like a regular telethon. It wasn't live because we had to film it, do it live to tape. And then 2 weeks later, we broadcast it, and we manned the phones and took the calls, and we raised like $30,000 for leukemia. And when I tell you, like, hysterical, the way, like, we had all the entertainment was on the stage of the intermediate school, the junior high school. And in order to get the cameras level to the stage, I had them lay out the tables because it was a multi-purpose room. So it was also the cafeteria. So we had them lay out the cafeteria tables, and I took the gym mats from the gym and I put them on top so that we could put the cameras that were on wheels, and we could roll them like a dolly, on this thing. And it, like, just things that, just thinking about how to execute with what you had to work with. And it turned out to be a really, successful event, made the Daily News in New York City. And we raised this money, and then the Leukemia Society gave us $3,000. They gave us 10% of whatever we raised to use towards offsetting the costs of our prom. And so, so our whole class got to go to prom our senior year almost for free.
That's cool.
Because of what we did. And so it was that was the spark. And then I went off to college. I went to Emerson College in Boston and communications school. I majored in advertising and minored in TV production. And I knew that I wanted to, what I really wanted to do initially was produce commercials. And then that kind of morphed and changed. I started my first company. I sold my first company to Gray Advertising in New York. It was a direct response television production company. So we produced infomercials, and that was a lot of fun. And then I said, what I really want to do is produce programming. And I went out after I left Gray Advertising. I was with them after they purchased my company. I was with them for 5 years. And then I took my stock from Gray Advertising and I invested it speculatively in producing a pilot on a show idea that I had. And that show is what got me in the door to meet the guy, this gentleman by the name of Dan, who is now the head of EarthX TV. And it was how all that
just all worked together.
Yeah. So that was it.
That's awesome. So here you are. You got this Bike to Bite show. Where do you want to see it go? I mean, you're in season. You did see 2 seasons.
Did 2 seasons. We're still waiting to find out what we're going to do with season 3. There's some things that are kind of moving parts that we kind of need to manage, and we're working on that. We were going to do season 3 in Europe this summer, but I think it became very, very complicated with what's going on with the Olympics and with the Tour de France now being moved. It was challenging all throughout Europe to try to book a show schedule. We were going to do 8 countries in Europe. And so we kind of did the pre-production planning on it, but I think we're holding on it. And I think we're going to slate that for next summer. That's the plan. And in the meantime, just continue to develop some of our shorter form content, our podcast content. I'm really grateful you came on my podcast. I can't wait for people to see that.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun on that. And
those of you guys listening, definitely click the link that I have in the show more, or in your podcast that you're listening to, and go over to their podcast website and give it a follow, or follow the Bike to Bites podcast, and you'll see the episode coming up here shortly with me in it. So it's weird for me to be on the other side of the interview, but it was a good time. We had a lot of fun.
It was. And, I think, and it's also strange for me to be on this side of things because it's usually me doing interviewing but no, this has been really fun. And there's not many people you meet in life, and I say this with complete sincerity, that you instantly form a connection with, and that the connection that you think that you're forming actually turns out to be real. Like, it's,
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it's like you, your wife, and I met in a very interesting way. We were on a hill climb at Sea Otter for a media event, and I was struggling. And as I, shared with the audience with our podcast that you and I did on the Bike to Bites podcast, is I have a little bit of a heart condition, and so for me, it's things are a little harder, generally
Yeah.
speaking, and you and your wife were just so supportive and lovely, like, and coaching and cheering and like,
Man, you're messing my brand up, dude. Everybody thinks I'm a jerk.
no, not a jerk. Look, we can all be jerks, right? That's that can be fun and it can be easy, but like,
Yeah, no, I'm totally
but
kidding.
no, but I mean, like, it was really, really cool to be able to meet a couple of people that you just form this instant connection with, and then you later find out that, what, they're the real deal. And we ended up riding together in your hometown, and that was a lot of fun. I was out in Northern California, and we were able to do that. And I just think it's very, very cool. Like, I just want to, I think the best part of what I do is meeting the people that I meet along the way of doing what I do.
Yeah.
My wife always makes fun of me. She goes, man, you could just talk to a wall, and, and the wall talks back, she said. And I was like, well, I go, but like, I have this hunger for wanting to get to know people and know their story.
Yeah.
And I think there's something really rich in
Yeah.
that. It's like the
That's
guy
why I
that,
like doing the podcast, man. I think I have the same hunger,
yeah, for sure. It's like the guy that I read recently, this article in one of the papers about this guy that's on a mission to get to be decorated with the most degrees from higher education than anyone in the world. And
Wow.
and his reasoning is, I don't want to leave this planet not having learned everything I possibly can learn. And I
That's
feel that
crazy.
way. I feel that way about, I don't want to leave this planet without meeting as many people as I can meet, because I think everybody can kind of
Yeah.
bring something to the equation,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So earlier you were telling the story, you got up the mountain bike hill and you started going down the mountain bike hill and things were not going well. Where did that end up? How did that, so you're an avid mountain biker now, or?
no, back to the mountain biking story. So no, I sold the mountain bike.
So you got down the hill and you were like, this is not for me.
This is not for me. And shame on me, because that's not really kind of giving something its fair shake. So I made a commitment to myself, that I want to try it again, but under your tutelage. I'd like to, because I know that you'll be kind and won't take me on something, or maybe you won't. Maybe you will
Yeah,
just
who knows, right?
maybe you'll throw me down a hill and say that's how you learn. But I think, based on our skiing stories, but no, I want to try it again. And
Yeah.
I know what kind of mountain biker I would be. Like, I would love to bike pack. That's really what and I think to some degree, to bike pack, you need to know how to mountain bike, because I think,
I think it depends on what kind of bike packing you're doing. You can do that on the road. You can do that with a gravel bike. I mean, you could do that with a mountain bike. It really depends on what you're looking for. But I think that the thing about mountain biking is that it's much more scary than road biking. Like you feel like there's much more consequences, right? Like on a road bike, you feel like I'm gonna fall over, I'm gonna like maybe skin myself up. And then when you're on a mountain bike, it feels like, oh, I'm gonna fall over, I'm gonna break something, like and I think at the end of the day, just like road biking, like the more you do it, the more you get comfortable with it. And the more that like originally maybe 10 miles an hour seemed like really fast on your road bike, and then 15, and then it's like Next thing you know, you're doing 38 down some hill, and you're like, oh wow, I'm handling this, and that seems like it could be like just like nuts to you, and maybe 5 years from now, like you'll look down and you'll be doing 45, or 50, and you're like, oh, this is my new normal. And I think that's the same thing with mountain biking, is like you start small. And I think the problem is that sometimes people don't start small, and yeah, of course, if you like, if the first time you ever jumped off a diving board, you got on like the highest Olympic diving board, and we're like, okay, I'm gonna do it. It's like, dude, this is freaking serious, like, no, you start standing on the side of the pool jumping in, and it's the same thing. Like I was gonna say with mountain biking, it's like you start out with something that's pretty flat and pretty like not much more than just dirt, and then it's like, oh, okay, I'm learning how to do that, and then it's like you're climbing a little bit, or you're dealing with some turns, or you're going downhill a little bit, and they all build those skills on top of each other.
Mm.
And next thing you know, you're at a spot like where I am, or somebody even better than me, where it's like now I'm looking at stuff that I would have, put it this way, I build trails now that 10 years ago that I wouldn't have even like, I would have thought anybody would be stupid for even riding. Like, that's the dumbest thing. Like, why would you even ride that? And like now I'm like building that, so it just happens over, the more experience you get, and the better that you get at doing it. So I think, I mean, at the end of the day, like what you've told me from your experience of riding road bike, I feel like you could have the exact same experience riding mountain bikes. And I think if you enjoy riding bikes, that they're complementary. They're just like different like ways to do it, and it would open up a whole other world to you of like, hey, like right now you have this untapped resource out your door that's there, that potentially could be like, this could be like, wow, this is amazing. This is actually like, this is everything I ever wanted, or maybe you go do it again and you're like, nope, still not for me. But
Yeah.
either way, yeah, it would be super fun to ride with you, and
Yeah.
to go somewhere like that.
I would love to do that. And I have one little footnote. We were talking about burgers before, and I forgot to mention, because you asked me my favorite beer, and I gave you my favorite beer that on the show. You asked me my favorite burgers. I told you those. There was another burger called Wild Pasture Burgers out of Colorado. Phenomenal. They raise their own cattle, and the meat from their organic farm is used in their restaurant, which is pretty, can't get more local than that. That was
Yeah,
really good. But the beer that I had here from Carton Brewing with my burger from here, there's something about it being your hometown and these two great people doing these great things, that makes it really special. So the beer burger combo was the one that I had in Jersey. But the beer
there you
that
go.
I love, meeting the guy from Alchemist. I mean, you've had Hetty Topper,
Yeah,
that was a treat. But
yeah, I thought it was
wasn't a
pretty cool. I saw some of that episode where like they're brewing silos, I guess you would call them, were like painted so that they look like beer
treat.
cans. I thought
Cans.
that was really cool. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
looked like the cans. Yeah, it's really,
Yeah.
and I think it's been so fun just meeting so many interesting people, or reuniting with some friends that you knew from the past. And, I've had the benefit of doing all of that. There's a great pastry shop in Boston called Mike's Pastry, famous in the North End, famous for their cannolis and their lobster tail stuffed with this goodness of cream. Like
Yeah.
Angelo, who owns that place, been friends for years, like phenomenal. Like, so there's Gavin Kaysen from Minneapolis. And you asked about it, like Minneapolis was, who would have thunk Minneapolis as a cycling city when most of the year it's freezing, but
Right.
their bike infrastructure is incredible. And I asked, like, do people ride their bikes in the winter? Yeah, they do the fat tire riding in the winter on those bike lanes, on those roads through the city. But that Belcourt Bakery in Minneapolis with Chef Gavin Kaysen, phenomenal. The closest I've ever come to having a croissant outside of
Yeah.
Paris was there. So
Nice.
so many great places, and I think people should watch these episodes. Look for them, watch them, and maybe get a different POV on a city that they might have brushed off as not being one they wanted to go visit, and give it a shot and see it on two wheels, you know?
So I would assume if anybody wants to watch the show that they could go to your website and they would show like where it's syndicated or how they could watch it, or
They can go to our website, they can go to YouTube, and they can, you know, have our Instagram, you know, bike2bites.tv also has some content that we put up there. And if anyone really can't find an episode and wants to see it, you know, they can call me. You know, maybe
yeah,
there's a way that I can
shoot you a message on Instagram.
shoot a message on Instagram. Hopefully we can
Perfect.
direct them to a place where they can consume it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you hanging out here and chatting with me. Before we take off, though, I always like to ask people what they like to watch on YouTube. It doesn't necessarily mean if it's cycling content or not, because there's so much content out there. It's always fun. You'll come up, like, some people will tell you like some interesting ones, and you're like, oh, that sounds really rad. So expand our algorithm. What is it that you like to look at?
I have a few, actually. I love watching innovations in camper technology, like campers that are out there, like off-road camping and, like, you know, the teardrop trailers. And so I like to consume some of that content. I love anything that talks about the latest and greatest gadgets. Those are always fun, and I like consuming that. There's a guy that I have been watching recently, and he's out there talking about a bunch of different gadgets and travel.
What's his channel name?
I think his name is Josh. Oh God, hang on a second. I got to give a shout out to him because
right.
Hang on.
Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. He does. Let's see.
While you're looking it up, I'll tell you, I have a buddy that actually quit his job at the robotics company that I work for, so that he could make a trailer, it's sort of like, let's just call it like a teardrop on steroids, but he wanted to make something light enough that you could pull with your car, but could still sleep for. And it like pops up. It's really neat. I'll have to show you the website. Check it out. It's called Bear Theory Outdoors.
I've seen it. I've seen it. Yeah. That's very, very cool. I've seen it. This guy's name is Josh Fenn.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's out there. He does some gadget stuff. And then I do watch a lot of cycling stuff, you know. I love some of the bike packing videos that I've seen and the documentaries on, like, big treks across, you know, very interesting landscapes. So they're just fun.
Have you watched the Ride the Divide documentary?
I have. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I would love to try that sometime. I feel like it's like me just like having some kind of crazy idea that's like ridiculous, but for some reason it just seems like, man, that would be really rad to say you like rode across the country, you know, from like Canada to Mexico. That's nuts.
Well, I tell you that I do want to do bike camping, and I think, or bike packing, and I think I'd have less fear going with someone that was a former military guy than going by myself.
Yeah, I hear you there.
You know, somebody who actually might know how to survive if something happens. And
it's questionable, I'll tell you that much.
So, you know, but yeah, no, there's a lot of great content that's out there, and I just I spend, you know, some that's how I kind of unwind sometimes, you know. I've stopped watching, like, I don't you know, there are people who get crazy about like flipping through the phone and watching reels, and I've stopped doing that a lot before I go to bed, because I find that it doesn't I don't sleep well for some reason if I do that.
And I'm always watching. I always tell Katie, I have the ADD personality, so I really need something to like focus on to help me to go to sleep. So I'm always like trying to find something boring, is what I tell her. Yeah. So I tell you what, man, there's like what's that guy's name? Josh something on, I think it's like the Travel Channel or ID or something like that. He's like God, he's always like going to like he's archaeologist or something like that, right? And he travels all over, and it's actually not boring content, but it's like, it's something where it's like, it's like, it gives me something to focus on. And I'm like, sometimes though, I'll catch myself. I'm like, I don't want to fall asleep. And then I'm like, yeah, well, I guess I'll watch the rest of it tomorrow. But no, I always, I do the same, because if I was to sit there and scroll, I would, it would keep me like
It
going.
keeps you
Like
up.
I
No.
would never go to sleep.
No, and I think some of like, and I'm not just saying this because I'm trying to, pat your back, but like some of your, I've told you this, I love some of the just the very earnest, heartfelt content that you do. I mean, I've seen some of the stuff that you've done on the trails, but also some of the stuff that you've done about, your own, your
The
own
weight loss
battles
stuff.
with wanting to
Yeah.
take the weight off, because I've struggled with that too. So, when you find people who are real and they're willing to just speak to you like like this, like
Yeah.
we've known each other, we're friends, you're connecting, and I think that resonates with me. So like there's some content that content that I've enjoyed, and it's been inspirational just listening to and hearing
Right
people and
on.
hearing their stories.
Yeah.
People have some great stories, really
Good
great
stuff.
stories.
Well, if you guys want to hear some good stories about cycling across the United States and apparently maybe in the future Europe, go check out his websites that are in the show more and also in the notes of the podcast. So it's bike2bites.com. Is that what it is?
Correct.
And
Yep.
then it's Bike to Bites podcast. I'm just going off of memory here. I believe podcast.com.
Yeah, or you can find it on or you can find it on the YouTube channel has links as well
Yeah.
to our podcasts, and then our Instagram is bike2bites.tv.
Sweet. Man, it's been a pleasure sitting here chatting with you. I've had a great time. Those of you guys that want some more, go ahead and like I said, check out his podcast. There'll be an episode with me on that soon. And outside of that, there's one thing that I want you guys to remember, and that's it only takes a bike to be a biker. Get out and be one.
It's awesome.